Welcome to Those Who've Been Here Before, a Hastings College podcast made by Hastings College students about the people who've made this place so great. My name is Maddie Downie, and I'm your host. I'm partnered with Luke Liffengren, also a Hastings College student, who produces the program. In each episode, we will talk to and reminisce with a new guest, either an alumni of the college or someone who's impacted the college in a certain way. It is through these amazing people that the college has become what it is today, and so it's our objective to bring those voices out of the woodwork and remember them for what they are. Hastings College not only has a bright future, but a past as well, and we want to keep that memory alive. Our guest today is a woman who understands the importance of human communication, the importance of storytelling, and, especially, she understood exactly why she was invited to the Gray Center on that Monday afternoon. She also understood the technology we were using, which is, I'll admit, a little intimidating, especially when she suggested that I correct her voice levels after we completed the interview. She is soft-spoken but thoughtful, and the only person I've interviewed in and out of this project to have asked me a question in return. I wasn't prepared, but I was thankful in the end. I didn't include my answers in this episode because this isn't about me, it's about her, former journalism professor Sharon Brooks. Good afternoon. How are you?
Hello. How are you doing, Maddie?
Good. How are you?
Fine.
Good. Okay, so I just want to have a conversation about Hastings and you.
Hastings College, right?
Hastings College, or Hastings the town, or just you, whatever. Brooks was born in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And then, when she was still young, her family moved to Fremont, Nebraska, and then later to Hastings, where she attended college. She was an English and journalism education major.
In the early 70s, there was a lot of investigative journalism happening, and it was exciting to see what there might be in the future. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The program at Hastings then was for teacher education. I wanted to do more than just get the education degree with my journalism particularly, because I wanted to find out what it would be like to be a journalist, so I did internships to do that.
What was your, big dream? What did you want to end up doing?
About what I did end up doing.
That's, perfect. Nobody does that.
Yeah.
So what did you end up doing?
Well, I was a television news director and then became a college professor, so those two things were great.
Yeah. What did you teach exactly here?
Journalism.
Okay. The same thing as you.
Yep.
As you learned from.
Yeah.
And you loved it?
When I came back in 1979 to teach, two of us created the program.
Okay. Who was the other person?
Dave Proctor.
Dave Proctor. That sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm. Dave was hired at the same time I was. He came in with speech communication background. Okay. Mine was English journalism. And I had the background in broadcast television as a professional, so we put together the program here.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So were you hired by Hastings right out of, well, I guess not, because you had to go.
I was in television for 4 years.
You were?
Television news director.
Television news director.
Yes.
No
Then I went overseas for a master's.
Oh, wow.
And finished a second master's at UNL, and then here.
Where did you go overseas?
Leicester in Great Britain.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool an experience.
It was.
Did you like it?
Mass Communication Center there was fantastic. There were only 6 graduate students at the time in our area of study. 2 were from Britain, 2 were from Nigeria.
That is really cool.
And then there were 2 of us from the U.S.
That is so neat.
So
little.
Well, it was good to meet people from Nigeria, obviously, and then the program was about a year long, so it was good. The new information order was a hot topic in the United Nations at the time, and my advisor was one of the 2 people who worked toward that. Sean McBride, who is a well-known Irish writer, and my advisor, James Halloran, created the concept. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, you must have loved it.
We were studying right there with the folks who knew what was going on.
Yeah, talking about an experience. But then you still came back to Nebraska at the end of the day.
Yes, I was hired to come back and start the program.
You said that you got your second master's at UNL?
Mm-hmm.
UNL?
Yes, I started it before I went over.
Okay.
And then I was able to finish a contained degree there at the Center of Mass Media.
Okay.
And then I just decided I would finish my research and finish the one at UNL as well.
Right. And then, so...
That's where it started. 2 MAs.
2 MAs.
No PhD.
No PhD. That's pretty cool. So then you said you were on television for a little while? Or was that during your time as a master?
When I was a senior in college, I was the weather person at the local NBC affiliate here in Hastings.
Wow.
I did my student teaching when I was doing the weather. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It was a big project. It's hard to do lesson plans and still stay up till 11 o'clock at night doing the weather.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But I enjoyed teaching. It was middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fantastic group of students at the middle school in Hastings.
Mm-hmm.
And when I graduated, I had an opportunity to work at the station full time, and I thought I could probably do that and then teach in the future, and I wouldn't have necessarily a second chance to stay in television. So I did. I went full-time news and weather, and then became the news director in 1976.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Did you love it?
I did. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be really cool. Well, so were you the person that like stood behind the green screen and like did the whole pointing at the weather thing?
Well, believe it or not, this was pre-green screen.
Oh,
So I had to memorize
really?
everything.
Like every new day you had to be like, what's the weather going to be like? And I have to speak in front of these people. I had nothing to point at.
Well, we had magnetic numbers
Oh,
on a
okay.
magnetic board. And some of them actually looked like they were little spinning sunshines and little raining clouds when you saw them on the camera. So it was very fun.
That is so much fun. So
Yeah.
a lot has changed. Like within these
we
last
were
few
we
years.
were film, not video.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I became news director, we actually were the first station in the state to use video cameras.
That is so interesting.
So we got to experiment with them. NBC was doing experimentation with all their affiliates at that time, and the engineer at what used to be KHAS TV was someone that they had relied on over the years to do some research for them. So we were satellite very early on in the program delivery time, and we got the cameras very early on. So I got a chance to make the change from film, those funny little cameras with, and we worked off of audio equipment that looked much like the reel-to-reel that you see in here too. So
Wow. So was the switch hard to make, or did you kind of
it was
pick it up?
fantastic.
You
It was a
loved it?
lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to use a new technology, and that was the kind of the basis for what I tried to do when I became an educator. The story is really at the center of things, and it can be told many, many ways. Sometimes it's best told with various voices. Your voice sounds different from mine, and our inflection indicates how we feel about things. So obviously that adds more texture than simply the written word. But the written word with a good photograph will tell you quite a bit if the cut line makes sense and the headline makes sense and the rest of it looks good. The program that we developed then was cross media.
Okay.
So students began in the traditional media in the 80s. We had typewriters that were not electric to begin with,
Oh my gosh.
and a building on campus that doesn't exist anymore. And we happened to be in a building with wonderful people in the math department and computer science, and of course they were the first ones to get computers.
Okay.
So they showed our yearbook editor how to index the yearbook one year, and she thought it was cool. Let's give it a try. So we were the first yearbook in the state to be indexed on a computer. And we switched over then to a computer, which meant that instead of having 8 or 9 or 10 typewriters, we'd have to line up and take turns on the computer.
That's amazing.
So when the Gray Center was created, we decided we wouldn't buy one computer. We would buy many and link them together. So we were the first local area network in the state of computers and educational organization. So
Wow.
it worked out well.
It was a mixture between the written and then technology together. Is that what?
And speech
mixed them together?
communication.
Speech communication.
So people who are researching their speech topics are the same kind of folks who can make good arguments, good persuasive arguments, for example. And they would also be the sort of folks who could write pretty darn good editorials.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So people would learn how to gather information through digital communication, whether audio or video or both. Notepads and pens worked really well also. Take pictures and then put them together to create stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
It was wonderful. There was a concept called convergence, and we were on the forefront of that.
We also talked about what it was like to see the Gray Center being built.
Yeah, the president of the college had me pop in one day and said, "What would you do with $1 million?" And I said, "I think scholarships would be great." And he said, "Well, we thought bigger than that." And so I sat down with an engineer, and we drew the blueprints for this building.
Does it look kind of similar, or are these new? I heard that the podcast booths are new, or have
They've
always
been remodeled.
Okay. But does it look
Yeah.
generally pretty much the same as it did then?
Well, the building was constructed in 86 and 87. We dedicated it in 88.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then as things changed, the insides of the building accommodated that change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Beautiful
good.
building. I love this area over here with the bridge and
Oh,
the
yes.
stream. Oh my gosh.
Robert Gray created the concept of the building in honor of his parents. He was a hometown man and went to work for the President of the United States, Eisenhower.
Mm-hmm.
And he realized through that experience the impact of particularly broadcasting, but also advertising and public relations. So when he did well and created an advertising and public relations firm for himself, he decided to honor his parents by building this building and giving back to Hastings. He could have probably increased his cachet in the Washington community had he created something in Washington, D.C., but he decided to do it for the students at Hastings College, and that was a big deal.
Another time she remembered was when the Gray Center technology was used to communicate with space.
It was exciting when an alum, Clayton Anderson, have you met him, our astronaut?
Yeah, well, I haven't met him, but I've definitely heard of him.
Well, he was at the space station, and we have, as you could see on top of the building, receiving dishes.
Right.
They're no longer working because we can buy much smaller ones now and do them much more precisely. But we knew we could downlink signals from the space station, and we could also send signals to the space station, thanks to technology that's embodied here. So we invited students from the local schools in to talk to him live.
That is incredible.
And they thought it was incredible, and so did we.
Right.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
still incredible.
His mother came along as a surprise. His sister was going to talk to him, and he knew that because NASA required everybody to write down every question and then identify the person who was going to be asking it beforehand. But his sister brought his mom along as a surprise. So when she stepped up to the microphone, I said, before she stepped up to it, I said, "Please tell him who you are." And she looked at me and got very indignant and said, "He knows who I am." And that's the first words he had heard from her from outer space. And he knew exactly who it was.
Oh my gosh.
Tears
I'll bet.
in his eyes. He said, "Mom?" And that was a special moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We often called this the window on the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every young person in that room that day understood what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
We did interviews with alums from who were in Russia. We did interviews with alums who were in China at the time, where they were live on our radio station. So people understood what it meant.
It's the rapid development of technology that allowed the college to do amazing things like contact people from other continents and from space. It is the continuation of these advances that allows us to do more and more beyond what we were doing then and what we were doing yesterday. Brooks and I talked about this phenomenon for a while.
I introduced my students to the idea of a weblog.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, it's a log on the internet that gives you a chance to update your ideas and add photos and sound and even video. It became a blog. They go, oh, blog. Okay, fine. We'd always been able to do audio. Now, how we delivered it, whether it was over the air live or on CDs or cassettes, okay. Students knew what Twitter was, but at a national conference, a couple of the professors were the first ones to experiment with it, and we brought it back to here. It's very odd to be the first time speaking to a large audience in an auditorium and then seeing them typing little messages to each other and then shown on a screen behind you.
Yeah.
So they were tweeting.
Everybody does that. I mean, like everybody.
But back
all
then
the
it was
time.
a new
It was
thing.
a big deal.
It was the first time.
And now everybody's just like, casually.
But it still matters what you, as we all know, what you actually type. And I think one of the most important things that students were able to learn as they experimented with new technology is what the responsibilities were that went along with it.
Because nothing on the internet really, can leave,
That's right.
It's always going to be there. I think about that sometimes. You have to be really careful what you put out there.
And I think that's an excellent example, Maddie, of what we're talking about when we talk about the liberal arts concepts of our campus.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. So if there was one thing that you hoped kids would get away from or take away from their liberal arts education here, what would you want that to be? Or what did you want that to be?
Well, they're going to leave Hastings College as really good thinkers. And you'll have a direction when you leave here. You may not feel it's exactly as focused as you'd like it to be. Maybe it will be. But you will know then that your skills that you've practiced with here will serve you well when you make choices that are different from your original choice, when you do something fun in your life that you don't get paid for, and when you say to yourself, gosh, I need to do something a little different that supports me financially. Hopefully it will make a difference in how you relate to people and what you choose to commit your life to do when you want to serve others. This is a good place to learn all that.
I agree. How do you think it's changed over the years?
Well, I'm excited about the new curriculum.
Yeah, you are?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of controversy about that.
Well, I went through 4 changes in it. So this would be the 5th if I were still here. So I'm
didn't
cool.
know that
I'm
there
cool
was-
with that.
There was other ones besides this
Oh,
one
yeah.
before you?
Yeah.
Like what?
My second year here, we created a whole new program.
Really?
So, yeah. And then it morphed again in the late 80s and again twice in the 90s. So it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. If it excites people and if it creates a good foundation for learning, if it keeps you excited about continued learning, you will continue to appreciate that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I wish I was around a little bit longer to like fully experience it, I feel like I'm kind of like at the end, like I'll only have like one semester of the
You'll
new.
stay connected.
I
You'll
think
stay
I will.
connected.
I
Yeah.
will.
Your friends will. You will. It'll be good.
How have you stayed connected with Hastings? I mean, you live here,
I do.
so I mean, you're not too. Do you come to like games and
Yes.
events and
Yes.
all that? Good.
Yes. I'm a great fan of fine arts and speech communication and the athletics. You bet.
Yeah.
As an English major, I certainly love all the things that are happening over there in that particular part of campus. And I have good friends in just about every building
Good.
that keep me up to date on, what's going on in psychology or business.
Right.
So it's great. And I think that's one of the things you'll learn as a person who went to a liberal arts school. You might not think of yourself as that liberally educated in the, liberal conservative sense. That doesn't have anything to do with it as much as you have respect and interest in what your friends are learning and why they're learning it and what they have to bring to the table when a problem presents itself. And you include other people's thoughts and solutions in solving it. Yep.
Do you think Hastings benefits in that way, being small?
Yes. It works well if people down the hall from you get together and talk.
Right. It's a little easier to make friends because you see each other every day. And
There's no guarantee on that, but you're probably one of those folks because of what you've already said. I could sit and work with my thumbs on my phone, or I could make a point of talking to people in person. That's a big deal. It's something that people might underestimate at a school like this because you can stay in a box technically, or you can become a fuller human being by interacting with other folks. Yep. And I think it's much more likely, right, that you would do it down the hall in whatever dorm you live in now or the apartment that you live in, than if you narrowly defined yourself in ways that you may not realize it right away, but you go, oh my gosh, it was really nice to have known so-and-so because I would never have thought of something that I learned from them in class,
right,
or a book I read, or a J-term experience I took, till later. And you go, oh, I see how that comes together now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the really charming, valuable things about Hastings College.
Right. It's all about like communication and talking to one another and
Yep, learning from one another.
yeah. And that's like your whole thing.
I hope so.
I mean, journalism, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just communication with other people who have different experiences.
It's been a joy.
Yeah, no kidding. And to teach other people that is, I think, valuable.
And to hear what they're learning when they give their experiences back as well.
Brooks has 2 sons who have inherited her innovation and knack for education.
They're hardworking young men.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our older son, Michael, is the major production person at Pacha here in town.
Oh, he is.
So if you like their program, he's a part of that. He is completely head over heels involved in every facet of Pacha, which is wonderful.
They've done so well. I find their soap in Colorado, and I'm like, Mom, that's from Hastings.
Yeah, pretty cool.
It's incredible.
We took a group of students, honor students, to a convention about 6 years ago, and they had just moved into Whole Foods. And we were downtown in Chicago, and I said, let's take a look and see if Pacha's there. And they said, oh, really? They were an end cap.
Oh, my God.
There were 3 end caps, Whole Foods with Pacha in the country at the time. And so we took our pictures and put it on the website. That was a lot of fun.
That is so cool.
But the mission that they have connected to their product is a very new age kind of way of looking at how to do something with your life that matters. And I think that's an important capacity to consider. Our younger son Matthew is an educator in Omaha. He teaches English.
Good for him.
And he also coaches soccer.
Oh, great.
So he's totally involved in education.
Yep. What demographic does he teach? Is he high school, middle school, college?
High school seniors right now.
High school seniors.
He enjoyed student teaching so much in German. He was one of the last German majors to graduate from Hastings College. He student taught in German and in English, and then he had an extra semester, so he did substitute teaching. And he substituted kindergarten, music, middle school, everywhere, just to get an opportunity to see every classroom in every school that he could in the entire Omaha Public School District, and he loved it. He, in fact, did subbing for another year because he learned so much about the culture of each one of the schools he was in, and a lot about how people look at education. So when he actually chose to get that job with benefits, not just the paycheck of a sub, he was ready and excited to be a part of the program. I think he would like to teach German someday again, but he knows he's gone over to Germany almost every summer now to see some Hastings College alums, by the way.
Of course.
Because he needed to make sure his German was in good shape. And over the holidays, one of his roommates spent time in Omaha, Hastings, all over Nebraska because he came over for about 3 weeks. He's a grad who happens to be German. So it's been a good experience for him.
No kidding.
He's Hastings. Yeah, did I say he's Hastings
Both of
grad?
them are?
Michael went here for a year and then went out on his own, and Matt graduated. Yeah.
Okay, that's so great.
Yeah.
And your younger son who teaches, I feel like that's a really hard age group to, like all those kids are like full of hormones and like,
He'll tell you it's a great adventure.
he loves it. I would not be able to do it.
Well, if you think that's something, I student taught middle schoolers. And
Oh, yeah.
my friends said, you've got to be kidding. What are you going to do with all that literature you read that middle schoolers don't care about?
Mm-hmm.
And I think back now to the middle schoolers I taught, and I see what they're doing today because of the teachers they had that were teaching full-time, and I go, I'm okay with middle schoolers. They're pretty awesome people.
Yeah, I think so.
It's an entirely different way of perceiving pedagogy, making relationships with students. But it was much different, yes, when I came back to teach at Hastings College, because then I was teaching 17 and 18-year-olds all the way up through seniors. Yeah.
I feel like middle school is a very moldable time. Like, I think that really awesome teachers are very important at that time of your life because you're so moldable.
I think the curiosity level of the average sixth grader is probably about 99%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
whenever they would ask me, what kind of preparation do you have to be a journalist, I'd say, be curious. There are a lot of people who kind of sublimate that when they get older. Keep asking questions, keep wanting to know, keep that energy level up, and then lots of other things can happen for you.
Although Brooks just retired 3 years ago, she's become active in the community beyond the college. She is part of the Hastings School Board, as well as an active member of the First Presbyterian Church and their adult education program. There, she helps put together missions and other activities such as the United Harvest. When I asked Brooks what Hastings College meant to her, she called it an evolving experiment in education.
It's got a tremendous future.
It's obvious the passion and care Sharon Brooks has for Hastings College and the Hastings community. We are lucky to have had and continue to have her as part of our education and development. Thank you for listening. I'm Maddie Downie, and we'll see you next month on Those Who've Been Here Before.